Holy One, we are on our knees in awe and supplication, for we have remembered the incomprehensible value of every human life. We have heard the thrum of helicopter blades and wailing sirens. We have smelled the ash and smoke. We have seen the blood-spattered sidewalks and the ravaged bodies of our children, of your children. We cannot unsee. Help us, dear God. Bathe our ears, soothe our senses, flush our eyes. Wrap your mother's arms around us, for we need to be reminded of you, to remember what is holy and good. We ask for the strength to remember we are the helpers. We are the hope. We are the face behind the bomb suit. We are the children rushing to answer their father's feverish texts. We are running the 27th mile to donate blood. We are kindness to strangers. We are the searching dog. We are hearts glued to the television. We are compassion for whoever did this and the suffering life out of which this violence came. We are on our knees, cleaning blood off hospital floors. We are the impulse to run toward chaos. We are the helpers and the hope. Inside our breaking hearts is all the evidence we need that an unshakable conspiracy of goodness thrives in rubble and ash. Amen. Amen. Friends, we gather on a day before we begin a worship services tomorrow, and we all wonder, what do we do? What do we say? How do we minister in the face of such uncertainty? I think our prayer video that we just saw is one way that we do that we proclaim hope, that we dare to proclaim life in the midst of death and goodness in the face of violence. There's been so many things this week, and you know, every week around the world there are so many things, but this time it was very close to home for you and for many around the country who've been watching things unfold. And so it's times like these when we're reminded that the things that happen every day all around the world are close to home for somebody. And certainly that we feel that full force when it comes home, close to home, when violence touches us close to home. So I'm hoping to address just a few things this morning about what might be helpful in times like these, and maybe even you'll find something that will be helpful for you tomorrow as you gather. So let me pull up some other meeting content. I see Sherilyn joined us with video. Hello. I invite anybody who wants to be on video to go ahead and do that. That's fine. So, friends, let me go back to the beginning of this. It was at the end. So the power of prayer. This is a prayer that one of my guest experts in the worship design studio found in a source book. And so I want to invite us to pray this prayer. And I'm going to unmute everyone so that we can pray it together. We offer ourselves to you, O God, our Creator. We offer our hands. Use healing touch to comfort sisters, brothers, and children who are afraid. We offer our eyes and ears. May we see and hear the signs and stories of violence so that all may have someone with them in their pain and confusion. We offer our hearts and our tears as their hurt and sorrow echo within us. May we be healed as we embrace each other. We offer our anger. Make it a passion for justice. We offer our skills. Use our gifts to end violence. We offer our faith, our hope, our love. May our encounters with suffering bring us closer to you and to each other.
Internet audio.
All this we ask through Jesus Christ, who knows intimately the pain and suffering of human tragedies. Amen and amen. All right. So, as we deal with difficult situations, there are many powerful ways to respond. One of the most powerful ways to respond is the power of visual symbol. Because sometimes the pain is too deep for words, and it's simply a visual that can help us. The picture on the upper left is a picture of an impromptu memorial at Boston University for the student from that university that was killed by the bomb in the marathon. And, you know, these kinds of memorials pop up. It occurred to me, I wondered if one of the things that we could do in difficult situations is at our worship services have perhaps some flowers, some separate flower stems available. And as people leave, invite them to take one of the flower stems that's been there maybe at the altar, maybe they've been in vases at the altar, and invite them to take a flower stem and take it outside and construct a little memorial place outside the church that's visible to the community, that starts that and then offers a way for those who are not coming to church to find comfort, a way for them to then add to that outside the church. This picture on the right-hand side, it's from an installation that was originally about immigration reform. But it occurs to me that there's something so powerful about an empty chair and a pair of shoes. And one of the ways visually to pay honor to those who have recently been lost is simply to, I don't remember if it was how many died last night or during the course of the day and the night before in the apprehension, but the total number from the marathon and from yesterday. You might set out some chairs in the chancel, just some empty chairs. That could be a powerful way of just honoring, and very simple way to do that without much preparation needed. So one officer died yesterday, so add that to the 3 that died on Monday, and if you so choose, the one of the suspects that died as well. The picture on the bottom is a picture of the memorial where the Oklahoma City bombing happened. And if you haven't been there, it's really, and one chair could be a child's chair. That's really awesome. That's brilliant. Let me see if I can make this bigger. The Oklahoma City Memorial has chairs, and they're lit from underneath, and it's just spectacular. And it sits where the building used to sit, and all of the chairs are placed where these people were in the building at that point. So that's another beautiful way to commemorate. But I think it's important. The power of visual symbol can help us to say things that we really can't say, and to offer people a space for their own reflections in ways that words cannot. So symbols are like transformers. Let me just say a little bit about symbols. Symbols are like transformers, says Mary Collins, who is a ritual scholar, and she says that they allow us to grasp ineffable realities through concrete means. So in other words, when the pain is so great or the fear is so intangible, it just lives there, we need concrete means in order to express, in order to get out our expression. And symbols help us do that. So in her analogy of symbols being like transformers, she's talking about an electric transformer that you see there in the picture. And these huge amounts of electricity come through the lines that we could never use in our homes. But the transformer is that which literally transforms that electric energy into usable amounts of energy in our home. And so what she's saying is that when the pain is so deep, when the concept is so large, even concepts like grace, love, forgiveness, when that is so intense, we need concrete things to help us express that. And let me just go back to those pictures because a few people just joined us. And this is what I'm talking about, the power of symbol. That's why these roadside memorials pop up. That's why that is so popular among religious and non-religious alike. Because it is a way, I think, of helping us to address our feeling of helplessness. That's also what ritual action does. So let's finish up symbols, and then we're going to talk about ritual action. So Paul Ricoeur is a philosopher who talked about symbol. And he says that symbols are made up of two meanings. One is, the first meaning is the symbol it has in its ordinary life, its literal form. So if we talk about maybe flowers on the altar that then one stem at a time get taken out and made into a memorial, sort of a roadside or church-side memorial after the service, the flowers in their first meaning are just simply things that grow up from the ground. They are flowers. But the second meaning in a symbol is how it speaks to human relationship with the sacred, meaning that it's that meaning beyond itself. And because of the events of the last few days here, anyone who sees flowers, cut flowers, arranged in a memorial setting, up against a tree, up against the church, wherever, instantly will think of those who have been lost. So that's how a symbol works, and that's how the power of a symbol works. Likewise, the chair. Let me go back to the empty chair. If you should put empty chairs in your chancel, it evokes the presence and the absence of someone besides just being a chair. And so that's how the power of visual symbol works for us. So the power of ritual action. Again, symbolic action, symbolic visuals, symbolic language all help us to address that sense of helplessness, that sense of doing something on behalf of what is unspeakable. The picture on the upper right is a picture of the place where the bomb blast was that some of you may have seen this week in Boston. And so again, the act of doing something, going somewhere, pilgrimage, honoring, this is not new. The ancient Hebrews, every time they had an encounter with the holy, every time something important happened or intense, they built an altar. And it's, I think, part of just who we are as humans. And so a very natural response and a way that we can do something. So thinking about how we can recreate that in worship is one of the things I think we think about in how do we respond in worship to situations like this. The lower left-hand corner picture is of a candle vigil. This is of a vigil at the college where there was a lot of violence a couple of years ago. And Candle vigils are also something that are sometimes impromptu, sometimes planned. But that symbol of light in the darkness is so powerful. The church where I was attending in Berkeley on 9/11/2001, the Sunday after that Tuesday, we were wrestling with what do we do in the face of finding it hard to say anything. We thought, what can we simply do that will offer a way to address the helplessness, address our need to proclaim light in the midst of darkness? And so we just set out a table that was separate from the altar table, and we put tea lights all over it. And during a time of meditative music, at the very beginning of the service, we just invited people to come and light a candle, and started the service that way. Rather than trying to put words to it, we put an action to it. And interestingly enough, that was so powerful that church began to do that every Sunday. And it became one of those things that that really identified that church. And years later, in fact, on the 5th anniversary of 9/11, I was leading worship there and reminded folks where the origin of that candle lighting at the beginning of the service came from. And many people had either forgotten that or weren't there at that time. And so, it's interesting how rituals develop. But I can tell you that lighting those candles at the beginning of worship was a way to enter into the unspeakability of the moment, and then begin to ease into language and ease into singing. All right, so the power of ritual action. There's a wonderful book called Ritual, Politics, and Power by David Kurtzer, and if you're interested in the dynamics of ritual, especially as it finds itself in politics, this is a terrific book, a terrific read, and addresses such things like, why would President Obama come and speak at a prayer meeting here? The symbolic power of leaders doing what they do in times of crisis, which includes you and your leadership tomorrow. But he says that transmission of messages through ritual dramatization is much more powerful than communication through verbal declaration. So again, underscoring that finding the right ritual action, like lighting candles or making an altar with flowers, bringing flowers forward or taking flowers outside at the end, whatever you can do is really important to think about. Not just the words we say, but what we can do that will help people be able to do something and address their helplessness. The picture at the bottom here is last night, the place where the bombing happened after the second suspect was apprehended alive. There were lots of people gathering around, 100 or so, I guess, and more and more things were added to that memorial spot. And so I think it just attests to the power of finding some way to express ourselves. All right, the power of music. Just this week, I was in Minnesota leading a worship design studio planning retreat in Minnesota, which I'll tell you here in a little bit that is coming to Cape Cod, and we already have a lot of people registered, so I want to make sure that if you're interested in coming to a 3-day planning retreat where we go through the entire liturgical year and you go home with themes and ideas for the whole year planned out, that's going to be in Cape Cod in September. So I'll show you where you can find information about that in just a moment. But I was there in Minnesota with several churches, many churches, planning, and one of the churches happened to be a Unitarian church. And so they had their hymnal there, and we were in Lent and talking about songs of comfort. And I have fallen in love with this song as of this week. That's in the Unitarian supplement called Singing the Journey. And I'm going to play they have the melody online, and I want to play it for you and get it in your head. But these songs like this that are what we call cyclical songs, meaning they repeat and they repeat, are wonderful for moments like this where again, fewer words are the better. So let me play this for you so you can hear. Comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me. Comfort me. Oh, sorry, it went out. Comfort me, oh my soul. I think you heard enough to get the idea. Comfort me. Comfort me. Comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. And the wonderful thing about these kinds of cyclical songs is that then you can insert your own words. For instance, cry with me, cry with me, cry with me, oh my soul. Or be with me, or hope with me, or anything that matches the rhythm. You can add that in. But that's a beautiful, it's my new favorite song. Thank you, Unitarian Universalists, for that. But there's a few other pieces of music that I want to suggest that are in our Faith We Sing. The song, of course, You Are Mine. Now I have this picture that is a newborn, I mean fresh newborn, but cleaned up baby lamb. And this Sunday in the lectionary, if you're following the lectionary, is you know, the image of Jesus the shepherd. And this, I put this picture in. We just got this from a friend of ours that actually has a sheep farm. And this is a brand new baby lamb, and the most vulnerable you can be. And I put it here because I think that at times of fear and pain we are vulnerable. And we need the care. We need that image of those hands holding us dear, holding us close. And so these three songs, at least the first two, are those kind of comforting songs. So the You Are Mine, I will come to you in the silence. I will something from all your fear. My music books are packed up, so I don't have it in front of me. But it's, you remember the song, beautiful in the Faith We Sing. And then Shepherd Me, O God, is the 23rd Psalm in the Faith We Sing. Absolutely beautiful. And again, amazing how the lectionary is sort of coinciding with some of the messages that we need to hear this Sunday. Just want to remind you, if you've never used Shepherd Me, O God, the Pew editions only have the refrain. So make sure you have someone who can sing, or the choir who can sing the verses, and then the congregation can come in on the refrain. The way I use this, and the way we would have done that in the workshop today, is that I like to have the pianist begin to play slowly that accompaniment and softly, and I like to invite people to imagine their favorite body of water. You know, the 23rd Psalm talks about calming waters, and so I like for people to imagine, and I invite them to close their eyes if that's helpful. And even if I have screens, I just have people imagine their favorite body of water rather than putting, you know, my favorite body of water on the screen. And I ask them to imagine loved ones there on the shore with them before we sing this song. And it often, people will say that often brings a sense of comfort and a thought about a loved one that is very powerful. And what I do is I do the first and the second verses, and then in between the second and third verses, I have the people repeat the 23rd Psalm. And usually I put that in the bulletin, or if you have Pew Bibles, you could have them open to the 23rd Psalm, or even the hymnal in the back, in the Psalms. You could refer to that page, and so they can have it right there in front of them. And you can either have them recite that together in unison, or one of the things I like to do is simply to say, I invite you to recite the 23rd Psalm in a whisper, aloud, on your own time. So what you have is people whispering on their own time, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And you hear this whispering all over the sanctuary. And one of the things that that does is it keeps it in what we call an intrapersonal space. Rather than the kind of speaking, when we have to speak in unison, we start speaking like this because we want to stay together. And so it keeps it kind of in more intrapersonal, going inward kind of thing. And then I come back and sing the third verse. And you can go to verse 4 and 5, but you can also just do the first 3 verses. 4 and 5 goes into a different kind of feel. A question was, is there a link to the UU song? And there is, and I'll put that in with the link to the YouTube video of the video that we did at the very beginning. And I'll just for those of you who didn't get on right at the very beginning, we'll play that video again at the end of our webinar here so that you can see that. My life flows on is also in the faith we sing. My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentations. So it has that address to lamenting and singing in the face of lament. So that's that can be a powerful one. And Jordan is putting in the chat box that you can email me. I said Marcia at marciamcfee.com, which is fine, or worshipworkshop@aol.com is also fine. Both of those things. I will look for all emails that are wanting the links to that, and we'll get that to you. So the power of music. Now, the question is, do we, in a day like tomorrow, do we just throw everything out and put new things in completely? And I would say you don't have to. I would say that the Easter season, and if you're doing hymns with the Easter season, then that juxtaposition of and the boldness of proclaiming joy in the midst of sorrow. If you introduce that correctly, if you introduce it in that way, then it makes sense that we sing an Easter message. We're in this great 50 days, this Easter season, and so we proclaim life in the midst of death. So I wouldn't say that you would need to replace everything, but you might want to pick one of these songs, attach it to the candle lighting, or attach it to the procession of flowers outside, that kind of thing. All right, so power of music. Let's go on. So here we are, power of poetry. Journaling. This was written by a friend of mine who lives here in Boston. And it was a piece of journaling that she wrote yesterday morning. So one of the points that I want to make is that your own journaling can be fodder for what you would say tomorrow in an instance like leading worship tomorrow. Let's look at this. She obviously went to an event in Boston early yesterday morning before things began to lock down. She said, "Today I got in the car to go to a dawn salute for Patriots' Day here where the Revolutionary War started. Out from the radio came the words of lockdown and manhunt and 2 brothers, boys. I stood on the rise above the North Bridge while smoke from cannon and musket fire drifted across the field. Geese flew overhead. Languid, beautiful river. Commemorating the fathers and sons who left home one morning and never came back. My husband had few words. He turned as if to say something and uttered, 'Take care of the children.' They brought him home that afternoon, a corpse, and laid him in my bed." This from an account read at the salute from long ago. Feeling the brokenness of young men who hate so deeply, the one rushing now to escape, to die. What is he thinking and feeling? Is he lonely? Feeling fear for the future of our children and grandchildren. What if this is their ground? Feeling the awareness of how many in the world live with fear daily. So just a journal entry, but it's often our own vulnerability, our own questions, that can give words to people who are feeling that as well. To admit our fear, to admit our vulnerability, and then to say we are not alone, and to speak that in the midst of the community. There may be people at your churches tomorrow who haven't been there very long, in a long time, or have never been there. And so I think it's important to offer the idea that we don't, as Christians, we don't only proclaim hope. We know there's suffering, and it's in the face of suffering that we proclaim hope. I can remember on Tuesday, the Tuesday of 9/11, I went to a seminary chapel service that day, and it was packed because this was just hours after it had happened. And the preacher decided that he would preach exactly what he had planned, and it was a mistake. It was a mistake not to mention at all. So we'll talk about that in a moment about preaching. So the power of storytelling, Anne Lamott is one of my favorites, and I think she always has something to offer in any situation. And so this was from her Facebook. If you haven't friended Anne Lamott on Facebook and get her regular reflections, I encourage you to do that. Frederick Buechner wrote, she says, "Here is the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid." And then she goes on to say, "But it is hard not to be afraid, isn't it? Some wisdom traditions say that you can't have love and fear at the same time, but I beg to differ. You can be a passionate believer in God, in goodness, in divine mind, and the immortality of the soul, and still be afraid. I'm Exhibit A." Hold on, next one. "There is amazing love and grace in people's response to the killings. It's like white blood cells pouring in to surround and heal the infection. It just breaks your heart every time in the good way, where hope tiptoes in to peer around." I'm going to repeat that line. Where hope tiptoes in to peer around. Oh, that's good stuff. For the time being, I am not going to pretend to be spiritually more evolved than I am. I'm keeping things very simple. Right foot, right foot, breathe. Telling my stories and reading yours. I keep thinking about Barry Lopez's wonderful line, "Everyone is held together with stories." That is all that is holding us together. Stories and compassion. That rings one of the few bells I am hearing right now, and it is a beautiful crystalline sound. I'm so in. I'm so in. So the words of Anne Lamott. Which Anne Lamott? Too many on Facebook. Well, the one that has like thousands and thousands of friends. That would be the Anne Lamott that you want to friend on Facebook. She is the author of many books and delightful and profound writings. So storytelling, that's part of what heals, is our storytelling. And as Anne says, not pretending that we're not at the point of just one foot in front of the other and breathing. That song, if you have contemporary musicians, the song "Breathe" is a wonderful one. Maybe not an E on the end of her name. Okay, I think you're right. I think it's Lamott without an E. But the song "Breathe" would be a wonderful one to remind us all to breathe and that God is near. Okay, so the power of proclaiming and preaching. So just to continue on with my talking about what do we do with what we've planned on an Easter Sunday, season Sunday morning. Adapt? Yes, absolutely, adapt. Do not ignore. But bag it completely? I don't think we have to. Our brains are wired, my friends, to find meaning in the seemingly dissimilar. So to put acts of violence juxtaposed with an Easter season message is actually not a big stretch. It is part of the Holy Week Easter story, is it not? That hope can win out. Now, it's difficult to make sense of violence when you're faced with it, but that is what Don Saliers calls the foolishness of the church. The foolishness of worship is to be bold enough to proclaim hope in the midst of despair, to try that on for size in the midst of not knowing what to do. So people can make those connections, and we as leaders can make those connections between that. Our faith is one of bold juxtaposition. A king comes as a baby, a Messiah comes in human flesh and is killed, and yet there is life, and yet lives. And so we're called to proclaim hope in the midst of fear, life in the midst of death. This is the Easter message. And yes, as we talked about when we talked about music, Christine has reminded us that tomorrow is Good Shepherd Sunday in the lectionary. And when we talked about music, we talked about all the wonderful correlations to the lectionary tomorrow. And certainly the 23rd Psalm and an experience of that is one very good choice. And Shepherd Me, O God, in The Faith We Sing is an excellent choice. Beautiful song. And easy enough. If you have the choir edition, there's a beautiful echo part for the refrain that the baritones can do. Easy enough to learn very quickly for your choir with just a quick rehearsal beforehand. So, friends, let's just reiterate what we've just said before we move on. We have the power of visual symbol, some way to do something in worship, to see something in worship that helps us. Impromptu memorial, empty chairs, empty shoes, running shoes is a powerful symbol. Tom Porter, my buddy Tom Porter, who most of you probably know in this conference, was telling me, he teaches at BU, and was telling me that this week everybody was wearing running shoes in solidarity, and so running shoes has become quite a symbol. So even this picture of the chair with running shoes would be quite a powerful kind of thing. We talked about the power of symbol, the power of ritual action, the power of lighting candles, processing flowers out to make an arrangement outside the church. All of these things help us as a community face and deal and address the helplessness that we feel in times like these, doing something. And then the power of music. Comfort me, you are mine, shepherd me, O God, my life flows on. These are all suggestions. The power of poetry. Don't discount your own journaling as fodder for how you will lead tomorrow. Take some time today to journal, to write your own thoughts, and then craft them more carefully into what you might say tomorrow. The power of storytelling, Anne Lamott's quote, and the power of proclamation and preaching the Easter season message and the Good Shepherd message in the midst of this context.